My parents, from the beginning, never treated me like I was sick. They would use my illness to teach all of us as children of the gift of life and how precious and fragile it is, and how important it is to pray, not for recovery, but for understanding through the process.
Welcome, everyone, to episode number 7 of the ROR Factor. And the exciting thing about this episode is it is my first live interview that we're doing. It's our first interview that we're going to do. And I have a dear friend of mine. I'm so excited to have him on the program. And we're going to talk about relationships. We're going to talk about how important they are in your journey in life. He's going to have some amazing stories. So we're going to bring Paul Cardall on here in just a minute. But before I bring him on, the treat that you have here is you've got an individual that is just an absolutely incredible artist. And there is a number of featured films that he has done music for. He's married to his wonderful wife, Tina. He has 2 children. He's won the Gospel Music Association Award, the Dove Award, and is so connected and has so many relationships in the area that he is in the music industry. And we're going to talk about how relationships were a key factor in his life and his growth. So super excited to have this person on the show and to have Paul. And so without any further ado, we're going to bring Paul on here. There he is.
Yeah, Elder Vos. Everybody, we were missionaries together a long time ago. So back when we were young and handsome, maybe.
I look, handsome. So my wife, I'm building myself up here, but my wife actually told me, she's like, you're more handsome now than you were when I saw pictures of you back then. And I'm like, your eyesight's going bad.
No. Isn't that great though? Isn't that great? The further you are into your marriage, with God in the marriage, how more attractive they become. The things of this world pass away, and the things of the spirit and the heart become more intense. And unless you go through a lot of stuff, hard things and challenges in the marriage, I mean, we all know marriage is an investment in something really good.
Well, Jennifer and I I don't want to talk about me, but Jennifer had a brain tumor. We had that removed. We made it through that. She's got 2 tumors left in her, which is kind of weird to look at your wife and go, I know what's inside you. And it kind of stresses me out, but we're going to have faith that that's going to turn out how the first one turned out. She's had 9 children. She said brain surgery was the hardest and most painful thing she's ever done. And she had 9 kids, the old fashioned way, one at a time. I had my health scare of a stroke, and people that follow me know how relationships saved my life. I mean, Paul, like during COVID, when my wife got off the phone and said, I have a brain tumor, she had this bump in her skull that was growing. We're like, what's this bump? Are you growing horns? I mean, there's not 2 horns. You're only getting 1 horn. Where's the other horn? But she said, I have a tumor. And it's like the T and C word. You never want, those major medical things that you just want your spouse to tell you. But they said, okay, we'll set you up for a Zoom call in 3 months. And I'm like, well, what's going to happen in 3 months? We'll just get you on a call and you can start to talk about what we're going to do about it. I'm like, so I have to sit here for 3 months before we even can chat about what we're going to do, because it was right in the heart of COVID and the house was going nuts and all that crazy enough. So anyway, long story short, through a relationship, we were in the best surgeon this side of the Mississippi the next day of diagnosis. And she was planned for surgery 2.5 weeks. And so 3 months came and she was home and recovering. And we're like, wow, isn't that cool how a relationship literally saved my wife's life? And I can't imagine what those 3 months would have been like, waiting to talk to a surgeon, say, how are we going to take this tumor out of my wife's head? So it was crazy. But all right, I don't want to get into me. I want to talk about you.
That's it's a miracle. Every time I hear these stories of, this is what they're predicting, and the waiting process of trying to have patience while God orchestrates this miracle. The word long suffering, like, when we're younger, we don't really understand what that word means, long suffering, but God has long suffering, and it's the ability to see beyond the struggle, and C.S. Lewis talks about this, beyond the struggle, that without these things, we're not going to fully feel the joy, that's that lasting comfort versus happiness, which is a short term of pleasure.
It, you know, um, when you go through stuff like that, I mean, it definitely made us stronger. And,
Mhm.
but it's just once, when you're going through it, you're like, that long suffering. But then when you get through it,
Yeah,
then you look back and go, okay, I get it. I
yeah,
understand it. And I can comprehend it. And, you know, just when I mean, Jennifer is I mean,
yeah,
relationship with, she's my best friend, and I
yeah.
cannot imagine life without her. And I've had several friends that have lost. We were talking in the green room about a mutual friend. We were talking about Russell Brunson, and his dear friend, mentor, and CEO of ClickFunnels died of brain cancer last December. And so sometimes it doesn't turn out the way that you want it to turn out. But so I want to, I want to, I like, we can keep going this route, but I want to
Can I
bring something to get
can I
going. I want to say, go. You want to say what?
Yeah, I wanna say something about that, because
Yeah, say something.
years ago, my buddy, Charlie Jenkins, who's a country singer, and, he's in Utah. Great. If you ever go to a rodeo in Utah, he's probably, singing at this thing. But, years ago, when I was in the hospital and I was dealing with, waiting, because they put me on a heart transplant list. I'd, been born with, this defect, had multiple surgeries. And, while I'm waiting, he comes in, and we're talking about the irony of, you know, uh, when somebody signs up to be an organ donor, when they die, I keep getting a thumbs up with it. When
I
they
love
when
it.
they when they die, and it's tragic and it's horrible, but we've come to a point where we can raise people from the dead through organ donation. But during that entire process, it was this, like, you're waiting, you're waiting, you're waiting. But we wrote a song called That Mountain. And it's that idea of why, Garth Brooks wrote, you know, the song about prayer, unanswered prayers, and all these things. But we took it to this point of, there's a farmer praying. He's on his knees praying. There's a engaged woman who's getting married that day. She's praying. Well, she's praying that the sun will shine on her wedding. And 2 miles down the street, you got the farmer praying that it'll rain because his crops are dying. So who does God answer? And so the answer comes in unanswered prayers. You know, so when we think, why did we not get that blessing? God had another plan. And the challenge for us then is to surrender, that he's got some other idea going on. And we'll never really know. We'll never really know why our prayer got unanswered.
And with that note, there's certain people that, like, for me, there's people that came in my life that drastically altered the direction of my life. Like, my life would be different. I mean, we talked in the green room a little bit. A lot of people know my story. I'd be dead if it wasn't for a relationship. I probably
Yeah.
wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have survived a stroke. You look at me and be like, how in the world do you have a stroke? I mean, I was in the pool swimming laps this morning, and I committed to swim an 8-mile open water swim with my daughter in August around this
Wow.
island in Upper
Yeah.
Michigan. Well, Mackinac Island up in Upper Michigan, Mackinac Island. My daughter and I are going to swim it's not a race, it's a swim, but it's an 8-mile swim around the whole island. And
That's got to be cold.
average temperature in August about 60 degrees. You got to wear a wetsuit because the water's
Yeah.
cold, choppy currents. There's boating lanes, and
Jeez.
it's intense. But there's no, so I want to take my fitness to the next level. I'm like, I want to get in optimum shape. So there's no better way than saying, all right, I'm going to set a goal to swim an 8-mile
Mhm.
race in open
Mm,
water.
mm.
And I've been in the pool every day since I announced on Facebook to the world that I'm doing this. And by August, I'm gonna be in pretty good shape, getting up to the point where I can swim 8 miles. But anyway, relationships, like, so when I asked Paul to come on here, I'm like, okay, here's a guy, we've known each other. We served missions together for our church, and we've I'd say over the last couple of years, we've been pinging each other on social media, and I've been following all the amazing things that he's doing. I mean, you want to talk about someone that has relationships. I mean, you could name drop for 2 hours all the people that in the music industry and just all the relationships that you have. But I want to go back. If you could start, I'd love people hear your story back in the beginning, like with the issues that you had and when you guys found out that you had these heart conditions and what you guys did about it. And tell us about that journey up to, I mean, it's intense. And I don't know, not everyone might not know the whole thing, but I would love for them to hear. And then let's talk about that. Share with us that. I'd love to hear that story.
Sure. Just to give you kind of a condensed version of a very long medical report. So as a young kid, I knew I had this scar on the side of my chest, and my parent and I would go every year to a cardiologist at a children's hospital. So it was made known to me that when I came into the world in 1973, when the Bee Gees were cool, I had I only had half a heart, so they had to operate on me. But here's what's cool is that they had a surgeon who was in California, but he was a Utah surgeon, and this is where I was born in Salt Lake, and he was willing to fly from California in time to do surgery on me because he thought the case was interesting. So I had surgery I hadn't even, it was less than a day old when they cut open my mother and my father, me, my little infant body. And I had 3 older sisters. And so, yeah, it was one of those times, no internet,
Mm-hmm.
your kid is sick. You can't just Google. You're relying on the medical people. And fortunately, in Utah, there was a good program. And yeah, so most of my childhood, I ran around like most kids, but when you line up at the elementary school and they're picking teams for Foursquare basketball or whatever, I was always picked last. But whatever, they let me play. I would try to use humor to offset a lot of these things. At 13, I developed endocarditis, which put me in the hospital, and they told me to say goodbye to my family. So I said goodbye to my 7 brothers and sisters, and I went off to surgery, but I lived. I miraculously lived. But then they said you need a complete reconstructive surgery, and so I went off to junior high school, knowing that at the end of the next year, they would need to open my chest again, and the doctors would joke with me, we got to quit opening your chest or your nipples will come so close together, you'll be a cyclops. Uh, so and magazines were cool back in the 80s. So one of the nurses says, don't worry about it. You're a centerfold and you got the staples to prove it. So, we try to make things light in all of it. But my parents, through this whole process with the relationship I had with my parents from the beginning never treated me like I was sick. They would use my illness to teach all of us as children of the gift of life and how precious and fragile it is, and how important it is to pray, not for recovery, but for understanding through the process. They were never like, we hope he lives, blah, blah, blah. It was more like a faith of accepting, a faith of surrender, and trusting God to work through the medical teams. And fortunately, there was technology, there was advancements in all these things, and the reconstructive surgery was fantastic. Even though they had to reopen me 3 more times, which was miserable, they had to put a pacemaker in me. So I was running on batteries, the Duracell bunny. But it was through that process of the medical situation that I had a good friend at 17 who used to just sit at the piano and he would play Billy Joel, and like everyone would gather. And I'd sit there by the piano as a 16-year-old going, how in the heck are you doing this? Like your fingers are moving everywhere. And I can't even play heart and soul with you. I took lessons when I was 8, but my teacher told my mom, you're wasting my time and your money. Uh, but my friend died, and in processing his death, I was in my parents' living room
Mhm.
trying to figure out why the heck, Chris, why was I alive? Why were they working so hard to keep me alive? And out
Mhm.
of nowhere, my friend who was perfectly healthy,
Mm.
got in this accident. And in processing it, I pounded on the piano. And that's the beautiful thing. When you're angry, go pound on a piano. You know, I'm gonna go. I'm not having a. When you're in a fight with your wife, Chris, go pound on the piano.
You know,
Yeah, don't take it out on her. Take it out on the piano.
just
Uh, and then,
she'll know
but
I'm mad at her though. When she hears the piano going crazy, she's like, "Oh, he's mad at me."
hey, why do you think Beethoven wrote his bum 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 bum? Some woman broke his heart. Actually, that's a true story. Uh, but yeah, in the process, I hit some notes pretty lightly in the tone. I was so
Yeah.
sensitive that it was as though the presence of God came in and just washed me
Wow.
of the grief. So that's where I realized that my whole heart situation and the setbacks that we all have, the challenges, that's what led to me understanding a gift God had given me. And I think through these suffering processes, all of us come to understand who we are and how fragile life is, and that there is usually a gift given to us that we can develop and over. Then you look back and you go, oh, I see. That was the gift through that process that I could use to channel the love God gave to me, the love my parents, my
Mhm.
family, my community that rallied around me, that I could somehow try to reflect back. Um, Years later, I had a heart transplant, and that's kind of where we're at. We're 15 years out of the transplant. I'm 50, and it's I shouldn't even be here.
It's
You know,
So
so
your
that's
transplant happened. I thought your transplant was when you were in your teens, but
no,
the
no,
brand
no.
new equipment, like take it out and put a brand new one in, that was 15 years ago.
That was
Wow.
15. Yeah, my daughter was 3 years old, and and then after the transplant, I had another daughter, which she wouldn't be here if she wouldn't be here if somebody hadn't signed up to be an organ donor. God hadn't given us the knowledge that we have, and us all of us working together in the sandbox to help one another, and she wouldn't be here. So her middle name is named after my donor. So it's a good reminder of the gift of life and what he did for us. So
Wow.
yeah,
So I there's so much on there that I want to just unpack and go
it's a
into
lot.
but I mean the purpose of this show is for people to understand the power of relationships. And, we live in such a transactional world. And I get it that everybody needs to begin with the end in mind. It's like, okay, I've got this to accomplish, or I've got this joint venture to do, or I've got this collaboration or this business deal. And we've got these, Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. Totally believe that. But, you lead with a relationship. And it sounds like for sure, I mean, relationships were just massively important in that whole journey you went through when you were young and then leading up to now when you had that. I mean, can you think of certain relationships maybe along that journey that would just really stick out in your mind? Like if it wasn't for this, this wouldn't have happened. I mean, obviously, but anything particular in that whole thing that you're like, wow, this person that you can talk about why relationships are so important for people to go all in on.
Yeah, I think there's two ways to look at relationships, particularly in my journey. Is one, you've got the relationships that are already given to you, that are built in.
Mhm.
The family, the extended family. And then if you choose to have a relationship with God, which everybody should, recognize that there is an Almighty who is trying to get us to listen and pay attention, and rescue us and heal us and save us. But meanwhile, we have these, these relationships that we need in order to survive, because we got to take care of our families. And so, we interact with people all the time. My before I get into who, a friend of mine, Richard Paul Evans, he wrote a book called The Christmas Box,
Love his stuff.
New York Times bestseller. He told me about five kingdoms, and this is just a way of thinking, like Seven Habits, but of highly effective people. But he said, in relationships, and I've really used this method, is you have a kingdom that you're in.
Mhm.
There's walls around it, and it's you and God. Nobody can come into that sacred space.
Mhm.
And then there's another wall around that, and it's you and your wife. And God's already in there. So your kids, other people, they cannot get into this sacred space. You have to set the boundary.
Mm.
And everybody wants to get in that space. Your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, they want to get in there and tell you how to do these things, but you just got to just leave your father and mother and cleave to your spouse and none else. And then and then outside the wife ring is you and your kids, the kids. It's all part of that wall. Don't let
Mhm.
don't let the world, the extended family, the friends tell you how to dictate blah blah blah. And this is how to have joy and prosperity. And then it goes out to extended family, and then the world. So in my case, I had my immediate relationships with my parents, and not everybody has parents who stay together. I would say the vast majority of the world now doesn't have parents that stay together. And I was blessed and fortunate to have that. They're still married. My dad is still kissing my mom. Um, she's still giggling about it. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing, and it's modeled. Um, and so, with that relationship, they were able to give me um, everything I needed, from you know survival stuff to love. Um, and so through that process, but then we had to develop relationships with doctors,
Mhm.
nurses, and when there's no internet, you develop relationships with the doctors. That's all you know, so you trust them.
Mhm. Mhm.
As you get older in life, like I mentioned, the transplant, you can't just settle for the doctor that you have a relationship with. You need to shop for the very best for you. You don't go to a car dealer that you like, and they just give you a car. You need to maybe you need to look around a little bit. So, like in business, like in anything, the relationships, um, you need all kinds of relationships in order to survive. But then you have those immediate, at least this is how I see it, immediate relationships that are built in that
Mhm.
are beautiful. They're a struggle. Um, you need work, you need um, repentance and forgiveness with each other, more grace with each other. Um, Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of, I mean, if you want like a very specific person or
Yeah, if you can,
something.
yeah, if there's one that stands out in your mind, it'd be because I love working off of people's examples or personal experiences. I mean, I've got so many, that just stand out in my mind. I'm like, yeah, if there's one that be like, this was, if this didn't happen or if that relationship wasn't there, there would have been a different outcome. I mean,
Yeah.
see how people come up. Yeah, I mean, if there's one you can think of, that'd be awesome.
Obviously, I could go on about the parents. I could go on about
Parents.
siblings. I could go on about siblings, but I would say, um, like I mentioned earlier, Dave Career, who was my friend in high school,
Mhm.
who played the piano, who loved Billy Joel. Billy Joel just released this song, that he hasn't written a song, and I think it's been like 15 years. The lights need to come back on, because um but Dave was playing all his music, and the crutch of his death, the sadness of his death, I would not have, through that relationship,
Mhm.
I've come to understand that God had given me a gift to play. I didn't know it. It's like
Mhm.
Peter Parker getting, you know, bitten by the spider. He didn't know he had these abilities, these powers to do these amazing things. But
Mhm.
had I not had that relationship with Dave that came naturally,
Mhm.
never force a relationship,
Mhm.
let it happen naturally,
Mhm.
um, that led to kind of the rocket ship of what I do, um, career wise. And I kind of see it more as a ministry. Yeah.
I love what you said about naturally because we try and talk to people about this and get them to understand like so many things, so many people try and force relationships, and we live in this world of DMs, and people are trying to, it's like a guy standing out in front of your house sends me a text message and says, "Hey, I'm Joe Schmuckatelli and I'm standing in front of your house, could I come in and see you?" No. Okay. Hey, Christopher, you're amazing. You're really inspiring. I love all the stuff you post on Facebook. You just really inspire me. Hey, can I come in your house? No, I have no idea who you are. And
But the last name Schmuckatelli, he's probably got some Italian sausage that he's bringing over. You might want to reconsider that.
just have them leave it at the front. Well, if you have something, if you
Yeah,
have sausage,
Schmuckatelli.
just put it at the front doorstep and let me taste that, but people, everything's transactional. Everything's, people, I want this relationship because I want something. So I want to
Yeah,
zero on something you said, that natural people need to give it time. They need to have the patience. They need to let things develop organically. My friend Dave Woodward said, lead with the friendship, lead with the relationship, and then all the other opportunities just organically happen. I mean, you just said that. I
that's
mean,
right.
it just, something just naturally happened that put the balls in motion, and you have to be patient for that, because if you're not, you force it, then you're going to make a wrong move or a wrong decision.
Yeah, totally, totally. These things have to happen naturally because forced relationships are transactional.
Yeah.
Those are transactional. When I came to Nashville, I built my entire company, business, the record label, signed the artist, released my own stuff through my company out in Salt Lake
Mhm.
City. I had a studio with Steinway and Sons indoor studio, and then my wife and I are driving through Nashville from New Orleans, where I was speaking, to Cleveland, where my mother-in-law lives. We just wanted to take a drive, and we went through Nashville. I'd never been to Nashville. Didn't think much about Nashville, because I do a completely different style of music. But we're driving through, go to Johnny Cash's grave. Got to pay my respect. I do love Johnny Cash. And then we're about in Kentucky, and we're driving past I can't remember what it is, but my wife and I both look at each other like, dude, we got to go back to Nashville and see what that's all about. Anyways, the Spirit of God led us to Nashville, where we now live. But, I'd been here 4 years and I travel all the time. So I haven't had time to develop relationships here in Nashville. But about 4 years ago, I said to my wife, like, when I'm here, I'm working. That's all I do. And I'm lonely. I need people.
Mhm.
And she's so good about it. She's just like, well, put it out there. Go tell God, tell your Father in heaven that, throw some people my way, and so that's what I said. I was like, look, I don't know who these people are. I've never met them. You know who they are. And yeah, I'd love to have fellowship with
Mhm.
people where there's no transaction.
Mhm.
So, it's this mindset of I would like to have non-transactional relationships,
Mhm.
and I can show up, we can go to lunch, we can do whatever. They don't want anything from me,
Mhm.
but conversation, patient understanding. And so it's weird, Chris, because I did have a friend from actually Toledo
Mhm.
who was in a band called Sanctus Real. His name is Matt Hammett. He has
Mhm.
a son with a congenital heart defect, just like me.
Mhm.
And he moved down And, we just said, well, let's get together. And we got together and we're like, well, we got to do this more because it was a non transactional conversation, very
Mhm.
healthy. And we called it our extra small men's group. Um, Men need fellowship, men need relationships.
We do.
Um, and so we started meeting slowly. He would invite people, invite people. So now this is what's crazy. Out of me offering up to God my willingness to have relationships with whoever he puts in my life, that led to now I got group texts, and you know how group texts go.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's a group text that just went on and on and on about this power outage that just happens to happen on Super Tuesday. So we're all going back and forth, trying to understand what's going down. Conspiracies float. But that's, I mean, for anybody who is lonely, um, you can receive. Don't look. And this is my whole mindset with the relationship with God. Stop looking, start receiving.
Mhm.
Just communicate the feeling and what you would like. I would
Mhm.
like. It would be nice.
Mhm.
Positive. It would be nice. People call it the secret. People call it manifesting. I call it talking to God. And He delivers. He delivers. It's crazy how He puts people in our lives. And of course, then it's up to us how we take that relationship.
So what you're saying is people need to prepare themselves. I mean, set yourself up, prepare yourself to receive those things that come in, and be in a spot where you can tap into or listen to or see the workings of, hey, y- when people have that, what is in it for me? What is in this for me? That takes you out of that space of being able to say what you're saying is being able to receive it and see that coming in when you're not just letting it happen. You're trying to think of, okay, what's the next step, or why is
Right.
this happening, or what can I get out of this versus how can I receive this? I love that.
Yeah, there's another great example of there was a year that Richard Paul Evans, who I mentioned, written this book, The Christmas Box. Well, he wanted me to write music inspired by the book, and so we did an album. I produced this album, and then
Wow.
after a year or two, it was like, well, he'd done using it as a marketing tool. So I said, "Can I have all the rights?" And he said, "Yes." And it was like, well, what do I do with this? At the time, I thought I needed a record label because I was dumb and naive as a musician. You can learn things yourself and do it yourself, and um, um, not everyone can do that. But I thought I needed a record label. So, do I aggressively call to have these relationships? Do I aggressively, No, I said, where are these people? Well, they're at trade shows. They're at and so you put yourself where people are and let things happen naturally. Go say hi, and you get a vibe right off the bat. Like if they see you as here's just another, well, move
Mhm.
on. It's if, through their arrogance, just move on. Um, but put yourself where people are that you want to associate with. You know, at least that's what I've come to realize over time. Is there is a
Be,
natural process.
be intentional about it. I love that. Be intentional about it and just put yourself in a position. I mean, a lot of people that I talk to are afraid. Like they don't want to come off, they don't want to come across as that person that is, hey, I'm just trying to connect with you for this reasons. And we tell people there is a way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And we get approached all the time. And we know that wrong way, the way that feels uncomfortable or it feels people are being pushy, that they want something. So my wife Googled this, like when I get home and your dog kind of stays away from you, I'm like, how does a dog know that I'm upset or
Oh,
mad? And I'm like,
wow.
they're like geniuses. And my wife's like, well, actually, I Googled this, and she's like, there's a hormone that our body puts out when we're stressed or angry. And then the hormone comes through our skin. So when you walk in the door, dogs have those, you know, sniffers, and they're like, oh, something's not right. And then, you know, I'm like, I thought they just could like read my mind, that they're, you know, they don't understand I'm mad. It's like, but in the relationship building space, people know, like you know, you can smell it a mile away, and people are like, okay,
It's
this person's not authentic. They're not real. And they've got an agenda, and I'm not interested in them. And
yeah.
there's this favorite quote that I love. There's a quote by Dale Carnegie I love. He says, you can gain more friends in 2 months by showing interest in them than spending 2 years. You know, you can get, well, let me do it again. You can gain more friends in 2 months by showing interest in them than trying to get people interested in you for 2 years. I mean, people spend all this time at trying to get people interested in, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's like, wait, show interest in other
Yeah.
people. Just do it for 2 months, pour in,
Yeah.
then you're going to become really interesting to people. And so I mean, the music industry that you're in is, I mean, it's, how do I describe it? Very competitive. Very, I mean, it is not an easy industry to be in. And talk about what relationships have played in your success in your career. I mean,
Mhm.
we could spend 3 hours, and I know you could just drop names. I'm friends with this person, this person, this person, this
Yeah.
person, this person. But how key has that been in everything that you're doing? And by the way, I want to make a little comment here. If you're watching this, you're listening to this, go look up Paul, and his music is incredible. So I'm drawing a blank on the name, but it has Eden in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
title.
My daughter. It's I've got that on Songs of Praise, which was yeah, it's on that record.
But basically, it's like, if you like, when I listen to it, it's like if I was there,
That's
like
cool.
part of it, like, so
That's cool.
sometimes when I teach, I put this on, and I get people all kind of into this thought process where they're just thinking and clearing their minds and then tapping into. But that one song
That's
is,
awesome.
you've got a you've got so many incredible songs, and your music is absolutely amazing. So look
Thank
up
you.
Paul. You're going to fall in love with his music. And I have so many family and friends and people that just absolutely love your music. And just, it's so inspiring, so incredible. I just wanted to say that before I forgot. But
Yeah, thank you.
talk about the relationships that have been key in your journey. I mean, moving to Nashville and all that, but anything that you want to share of those relationships have been really pivotal in your career and what you do.
Yeah, I think with my situation is unique because I created a niche in a pop culture world. So for me, it was about, nobody. How do you earn a living playing the piano? Doing instrumental, calm, soothing. I had to really define on kind of on my own what to do. So I feel like I was like John the Baptist in the wilderness doing my thing, while God is, going to take care of everything else. Um, but for the most majority of people in the music industry, you do have to know people. It is about knowing people. Um, and 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 so in the case of my career, I needed to know people who could educate me on what to do. I didn't need to know people to invest, to market, to do any of those things. I had, you know, if you read, that's a free education. And you don't need to hire somebody. You just need to read what they do and do it. Um, and so it was about who can I meet to talk to. And it seems like, Christopher, I don't know if you found this, but if you ask somebody for advice,
Mm-hmm.
they will give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
People love to give us advice. So the approach I had is to reach out to certain people. And with what you do for a living, in Utah, I wanted to meet an artist named Peter Breinholt, who he's just a local artist. He was just a local artist, but he would do these concerts at Brigham Young University every year, and the entire freshman body would go to these along with their friends, kids from Utah Valley University, and they'd go to these shows. So I was just starting out trying to figure out, well, what's this all about? What do I do? So I knew where his dad lived because I found it in the phone book.
You're totally
And
dating. You're totally dating yourself, but that's okay.
yeah, this is before Dext. This was the yellow pages. No, you had the white pages and the yellow pages.
Let your fingers do
So
the walking.
oh man, yeah. Yeah, so that's what Rain Man used to memorize. But
Definitely,
I,
definitely, definitely.
definitely I found the address and I decided, well, I'm just gonna go and take one of my cassettes. I'd made a cassette. Um, for those who know what that is. I made a cassette recording and I went and I took it and I knocked on the door and his dad comes to the door and I said, "Do you know, I'm trying to I want to meet Peter to ask him a question." And so yes, that was kind of early on an aggressive approach, but once um once I got a response, then things happened naturally. I just said, "Can you just I just need to ask you 2 questions." And then I had to figure out what the questions were. And he gave me the right advice. In fact, he invited me to go on tour and just watch what they do. I I kinda took that as I need to reach out, ask, and you shall receive, but ask with the intention of not saying, "Can you do this for me? Can you give me money?" It's, "Can you help me understand?"
Mhm,
Because you know, and there's a great principle in going to a teacher, somebody who knows what they're doing, who's doing it, and just asking the question and then let it go, leave it alone, leave them alone type thing. Um, and so that I mean, those are kind of some particulars like with my business. And then later on, where do I need to be? If I need good distribution for my music,
mhm,
well, where are all the distribution companies going to be? Do I just call one and say, try to get that? No, I want to be where they all are and talk to the people.
mhm.
You got to go talk to the people. And like this generation, my daughter, she wants a job, and I'm like, we go into the store and meet the manager and say, hey, I'm going to fill out an application, but I just wanted to meet you. You know, no, I'm just going to put out all these applications in my LinkedIn and my this and that. If you don't somehow overcome that fear, I think we're all afraid to go
Mhm,
and talk to somebody because
mhm,
we all have that fear of rejection, but every
mhm,
question you never ask is a no.
mhm,
So it's, for me in relationships through my career has been ask, be in a place to ask, and then take that information and put it in your notes and just apply the principles that matter to what you're trying to accomplish. So I guess that's kind of in a nutshell some of that.
That I love that. Putting, people I tell people, they're like, "Where do I start in my relationship building?" Number one, start with gratitude,
Mhm.
if you lead with gratitude, it's gonna hand you off in the right direction. Like, "Well, what is that?" I'm like, "Well, talk about what you're grateful for the person, or ask them ask them to teach you something." Like you said, ask them to teach you something. I wanna
Yeah.
learn something from you. And versus, I love what you're saying about the jobs. I did the same thing with my son. He was like, "Well, why don't you just go fill out an application?" I'm like, "No, let's go meet the guy." And then we went in and hey, in the introduction, and now I happen to know him, so that helped my son out a little bit. But like, no, you want to go in, shake his hand, and meet him, and say, I'd like to talk about an opportunity for a job. You know, we live, and I think times have changed. People have forgotten how to communicate. People have forgotten how to connect. People have forgotten how to build that relationships. And then, we had all this stuff that COVID happened, and then everyone lost all of this. I mean, the getting together and all of that. And we're really rebounding from people trying to relearn how to be together, how to have relationships. And I like what you said, Paul, because people default and go to this autopilot of, and that's what turns people off. And if they go with the approach that you just said, that changes everything. It really brings the wall down, because people build these walls. And how do you break?
Fear.
Yeah.
Fear. It's all
Yeah.
fear of rejection.
Yeah.
That's all. We just afraid of getting that, that D grade, and then having to go home and tell our parents, um, can you sign this paper? Yeah, it's all fear, and fear is a liar.
Mm-hmm.
Fear is a liar. Friend Zach Williams wrote a song, "Fear is a Liar." Go listen to that song. It's
Mm.
in every aspect. When we recognize that it is fear, it's easier to take it as, hey, well, everyone's afraid. People come off like they're not afraid. But I mean, Donny Osmond. Donny Osmond is still getting nervous before he goes on stage. Chris Martin of Coldplay still gets nervous. Bono still gets nervous. Geddy Lee, the greatest bass player and singer of the best band in the world, Rush, gets nervous, and we're all afraid that we're going to go out there and we're going to ask a question or present ourselves or do something, and they're going to totally reject us. Well, that's fine. That's fine. But through that process, not everyone's going to reject you,
Mm-hmm.
and great things happen out of just that one,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't reject you. You and I know this. When we were missionaries,
Mm-hmm.
Latter-day Saint missionaries, when we were missionaries, the majority of it was knocking on doors, cold calling.
Yeah.
Now, it was great when there was a marketing campaign by the church where, uh, you know, here's a get this free Bible, get this free whatever. And they
Video.
don't have church doesn't have UPS or Amazon. They believe in sending these young men and these young women who are young, naive, and hopeful of the world, and they go and they deliver it. And but you and I know the rejection.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't that great, as when we should have been in the dorms having a good time? We were living in garages, and going out and knocking on doors and getting rejected constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So good for us.
That's why there's such great hires around all these companies that come into town. They have these pest control companies or these door-to-door companies. They hire missionaries that got home and
Yeah.
take us up there. I have several buddies that own companies and they hire missionaries that come home and they're like, they're great. They're door knockers. They can take the rejection. I like what you said. That is one thing that my students tell me that holds them back is the fear of rejection. Yeah, that
Mhm.
fear of, and what I try and get people to understand is if they just keep an open mind and try and be different than everybody else. Some of the reasons why people get rejected so much is because someone's so used to that slimy, someone trying to DM their way into your life, or, they're reaching out to you and you smell like the dog, something's there versus someone that's genuinely like, hey, I see you. I recognize you. I
Mhm.
care about you.
Mhm.
And getting over that fear. If they don't get over that, they're not gonna, that was the same thing for me. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't get over that fear to reach out to the person. And there are times, Paul, where I have a message I need to send someone to ask them something. My wife is like, just send it. I'm like, you record it 4 times or 20
Yeah.
times, you type it
Yeah.
in, like you're breathing in a bag. And she's like, just send it. He's your friend. You've shown gratitude. They know that you're not out to take them for something. They know that you
Yeah.
care about them.
Yeah.
Just send it. And then you send it, and like a second later, whoop, hey, absolutely, no problem. Love to help. And you're like, your
Yeah. I
fear.
mean, what are they going to do? What's the alternative? And they say no, whatever.
Yeah.
And that it hurts. It hurts, but there's always another person that God puts into your life that you can ask. My wife is extremely aggressive in asking. She doesn't care. She worked on Wall Street. She came out of Cleveland as an immigrant's kid, and she just like, and it gets to the point where like we're at the Grammys, and she sees a celebrity. She's that person that wants a photo.
Sure.
And so I'm always like, just leave them alone. They're They're in their element. They're with their spouse. They're doing whatever. Leave them alone. And she's like, no, 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 no. And so she'll go out, but here's the approach. And this is why she always gets a photo with any of these people. It's, hey, can I ask you a question? And they go, sure. And then she compliments them on something they've done. Can I get a photo with you? And of course she's beautiful, but but when you apply those types of things, like, can I ask you a question? Um, Compliment them on something they've done specifically, and this is what your wife does in going out and researching something people like,
Mhm.
something a business likes, because that butters them up. They're like, wow, you know this, and um, but see, I take it to the extreme. So, like, when if there's somebody that I want to talk to,
Yeah.
I'll look up some totally obscure random thing, like the name of one of their former attorneys or the name of one of their former managers or a song they did with a particular bass player. Like, I really liked that song, and you had so and so come in and do that. That was such a cool riff. So it's a very specific way, and this is your business, of asking, where they're like, "Oh my gosh, you know that?" So right there, you're connecting because you're complimenting them on a very specific thing versus, "Hey, I really love who you are," or you don't even know the actor's name.
Mhm.
You know, y My wife cracks me up. I'll I'll give you an example. There's a comedian, John Crist. John
Mhm.
Crist, if a family-friendly Christian, comedian, hilarious, okay? Um, we were in a Delta lounge waiting to get on a flight, and he comes in, and we hadn't met him before that, and my wife yells out, "John!" And he looks back at her and looks right at me and looks at her and goes, "Do you always shout out to men while your husband's sitting right next to you?" But in that process, he then came over. Like, he came to us, sat down. We were just strangers. Now, not everyone's gonna be that nice,
Right.
but in that moment, it made him, and he comes over and he goes, "Listen, I'm a comedian. I'm not supposed to be in the Delta Lounge. We're all poor, so don't worry." But he starts telling us things, and we developed a little relationship right there. And since then, here and now, I see him around, and he remembers, and we talk. So, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
these random, just ask, compliment on something specific, um, and then, "Hey, can I get a photo, or can I follow up? Is there a website?" type thing.
Mhm.
Um, and at least that's a pattern I've also noticed. I don't know if you've noticed that as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. People there's that overused phrase, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and it's kinda beaten into the ground, but,
It's true.
it's like but yeah, they're like, you know, they people can tell the difference. They know the difference, and, like, your wife, like, she doesn't have an agenda, she just wants to generally, "Hey, I like you, I wanna meet you,"
Yeah.
and, like, we served missions together. When I got home from my mission, my number one goal is to get married, and I wanted 10 children, and I
There
got
you
the
go.
picture to prove it. So when when I got home, I went to Michigan State. There was a very small dating pool. I mean, there wasn't a lot of girls of my same faith there. It was
Yeah.
limited numbers. And
Yeah.
so word got around, oh, Christopher Voss, he just got home from his mission. He wants to have 10 kids and he's looking to get married. So you imagine everyone I would say, "Hey, would you like to go to a movie?" The first thing that crossed our mind is, do I want to have 10 children? And do I feel like getting married right now? And
Yeah.
every single thing I did for Jennifer, she knew why I was doing it. She knew I got her favorite thing or took her to her favorite place. She knew exactly what I was up to. And then, but the way that I did it didn't make her feel uncomfortable, didn't make her
Mhm.
scared, didn't give her fear. She knew what I was up to. And that's the same thing with people in the business world, the relationship building world. they know what you're up to, and they know that you're going to ask something sometime, but it's like, how do you do it? How do you package it? How do you do those things to where I'm in the driveway, I get on one knee, hey, will you marry me? Well, I knew I was getting a yes because I did all the work. So people like,
Yeah.
they got to do the work, do everything that you're talking about, do that. And then when you say, hey, they'll be like, sure, but you got to do that
Yeah.
first.
I love how the fact that you were specific, and this is, what we're talking about. Be very specific. People knew what you wanted.
Hmm.
And so everything's going to forge around that. And you have to communicate clearly your message, whether it's business or relationships or whatever. And it's not easy again because of the fear, the rejection when it comes to our kids, when it comes to family, etc. I mean,
I would love to have you talk about that. So we talked a little bit, and then I was like, "Hey, wait, let's talk about this on the interview." I'd love to have you talk about the experience you had with writing that song with one of the leaders of the church, and then if you can think of an experience that you'd love to share that has to do
yeah,
with writing a song or just one of those moments where you're like, "I would love to share this." People don't something that maybe people haven't heard about Paul and just someone you've collaborated with or done something with and how that all played out, that people would be like, wow, that's a really cool story. Start with the one, if you don't mind, about that we were starting to go into. And then if you can leave
David.
another one, I'd love to have you share that.
Okay, so in the green room, we talked about David Bednar, who is an apostle
Yes.
for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 17 million members spread throughout the world. This is the corporate church. And Declare 5 for those that go, this is the Mormon church. There's 120 different sects that came out of the founder Joseph Smith, and so this is the big one, guys. Uh, so the Mitt Romneys and all that stuff. So David Bednar is one of their senior leaders of 12, and I was asked to go and play at one of their fall socials for the who's who of the Mormon hierarchy, and yeah, it was a great experience. We were honored to be there. My wife and I, we sat at the table with these people, and to the church members, these guys are not only leaders, they're celebrities. If you get a chance to meet these guys, it's a huge deal. It's
Yeah.
like meeting the Pope if you're a Catholic.
Mhm.
And so, excuse me. So afterwards, David Bednar and his wife Susan were waiting in line. I was signing CDs and I was talking to people, and they were waiting in line. And I was like, these are, some senior leaders of the faith here. How cool is that they would so patiently
Mhm.
wait? And I take my time with people. My wife says your concerts last way too long because after you talk to each person one at a time. So about an hour later, Bednar comes up and he's like, "Hey, I'm not a musician. I'm not a songwriter, but I have this song that the Savior wants me to tell people." And I said, "Well, that's pretty ambitious. When Jesus is telling you you need to be a musician." I said, "Okay." So we developed a quick relationship, and he had me in his office, and we talked about, the song, and we went back and forth, and trying to, and I thought I put pressure on me, Chris, because I thought, wow, he wants to make a hymn for this massive church. And when you write a hymn with an apostle, most likely it'll be sung for the next couple hundred years,
Mhm.
um, for this faith. And, maybe it'll cross over. Most Protestant hymns cross over. But it was just one of those, like, I put so much pressure on myself. Like, I got to do like Handel's Messiah. And I couldn't do it. I just could not do it. And months went by. And finally, I just called him. I said, "You know what? I'm not the guy. I'm not the guy. Why don't you call these other people that everybody uses?"
Mhm.
And he goes, "No, no, you're the one I want because you have so many contacts and relationships and a following outside of the LDS culture.
Mhm.
And it was great to develop this relationship with him because I got to know David and Elder Bednar.
Mm.
You know, it's just like there's Chris at work and Chris at home.
Mhm.
You know, and I got to know both of them and found David. I love David. David makes me excited. David, if everyone could hear David, they'd be lining up at the door to ask questions and get to know him. So through that experience, what happened was I finally he's like keep it simple. Just look, the kid in Utah that's 5 and the sister who's 85 in Ghana, they should be able to sing the song. So I'm like,
Nice.
oh, I got to do like hot cross buns or Mary had a little lamb or So, but it was true. It was true. So I went to bed, just said, Lord, whatever, it's your song. It's not my song. It's your song. Just put it in me. And the next day I went to the studio and I laid down one by one. And it was so simple. It's just so simple. And I sent it to him. He called me back. He was at Home Depot getting some stuff to roof his house. I was like, "Don't you have people to do that?" He's like, "No, I got to stay grounded." I'm all, "Well, being on the roof is not grounded." Um,
No, that's a
yeah,
risk.
I said, "I'm glad you got the church insurance." But
I'm
but
at
yeah,
I'm at Home Depot.
I'm at Home Depot. Yeah, he was at Home Depot in Heber, picking up some stuff. And but I said, how do you do that without everybody recognizing you? He goes, "Well, I wear a baseball cap and a hoodie, and I just go in, I mind my business, and I do it." Um, and then he got into, I will, just a sideline of this. He goes, I was on the roof and God told me I needed to go to Home Depot. I'm like, were you out of nails? Were you out of supplies? No, I just needed to go to Home Depot. So he goes to Home Depot and he's dressed like that. And a gentleman comes up to him and says, and this is again out of nowhere. This guy needed to ask something. Comes up and he says, Elder Bednar, the disguise is not working. You know, and so right off the bat, you see that he asked in a kind way, like I know who you are, and said something kind of funny, not off the cuff, but funny.
Yeah, yeah.
And Bednar says, "Well, um, hello, how are you?" And the guy goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And Elder Bednar said, "That's why I'm here."
Wow.
And he
Wow.
asked a question about some marriage issue, and Elder Bednar directed him to some scripture. And yeah. And I learned, I picked up a good principle through doing this song and having that relationship with Elder Bednar, which is if God puts something on your heart, you go and you do it. And it's not like, it's like, why am I here?
Mhm.
Who needs me? And then he taught me that what the LDS apostles do, what their entire job is. Yeah, they sit on boards and they make, assignments. Their job is to go into a massive congregation. So people can see them. They represent the faith. But in that moment, who here do I need to minister to?
Mhm.
Like Jesus walking miles and miles and miles just to talk to one woman,
Mhm.
knowing those guys would be offended that he was talking to her, sent them off. And so these guys go to these congregations and they specifically say, who here needs my help? And you'll hear them tell these stories all the time. I was there, I met so and so, we did this. So through that relationship, um, I was educated, we wrote a song, and we put it out there. And um, his other senior companion in that group of 12, named was Russell Ballard, and told him, Bednar was so excited to get the song out there. He wanted the Tabernacle Choir to sing it. And Ballard said, "Let it happen naturally." So, so that's one, and that's kind of a long story to answer
No,
that
that was
question.
awesome.
Yeah, but if you want me to talk about, I don't
Yeah,
know,
tell us,
some other
tell me,
artists,
tell,
or
yeah, tell me another. Yeah, I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear another one. Yeah, that'd be great. That was awesome. Wow, there's so much to learn from that. And it goes right in line with everything we're talking about. That's great. Yeah, tell me another one.
um,
Not to put you on the spot, but
yeah, I normally do piano records, just calm, soothing piano with strings, and I was interested in doing kind of a soundtrack record because there was an author that wanted to tell my story,
Mhm.
even though he did it in a fictional way based on my story. It's called The Broken Miracle, and by JD Netto. And so I wanted to write some music called it's The Broken Miracle. But the record, I allowed a record label to work on this project,
Mhm.
and the idea was to collaborate with all kinds of people that I felt like were so different. I wanted them all at my table. I wanted to have them all at my table.
Mhm.
And it wasn't like I was looking for diversity or anything like that. I just said, Lord, which artists do you want on this record?
Mhm.
This is another one of your records. If it's imperfect, you can blame me. Um, but who do you want on this? And it's crazy because if you go through each of the artists that are on there, the way that the relationships developed were natural and happening prior to the record. David Archuleta, an artist a lot of people know.
Mhm.
The LDS Church had sent David to Europe to open my concerts when I perform in Europe. And so we developed a relationship where in time on The Broken Miracle, I said, "Hey, you want to do this song I wrote for my wife?" And so we developed that relationship and he did it. Another artist is Ty Herndon. He's a country artist. He was the first country artist to come out as a gay man, and quite a controversy in country music. But I had a friend who was like, "Hey, we're going to go to lunch with this artist." I didn't know who Ty Herndon was.
Mhm.
And we'd go to lunch, and everybody would come up and ask him for his autograph. And yeah, he was looking to he wanted to do something,
Mhm.
and I wanted to do something. So through that process, we didn't know what it was for. We didn't know
Mhm.
what it was for. And the song is called Some Kind of Wonderful. And it basically is just a way to communicate people that they're loved, they're valued, and doesn't, bring your heart out into the open. Whoever, just let your heart out. Tyler Glenn from Neon Trees is on that record. Matt Hammond, I talked about Matt Hammond earlier. We wanted to do a song about being born with broken hearts. His son was born with a broken heart. I was born with a broken heart. A lot of us are born spiritually um, um, innocent, and then we become broken.
Mhm.
Our hearts become broken.
Mhm.
And so, in those types of relationships, um, yeah, things just happen naturally. I was never like, I'll tell you what, I was aggressively trying to get some specific artists to be on this record.
Mhm.
And it was like every artist I went to go talk to, of, you know, still a artist like these other artists, it was like, man, it wasn't working out. I
Mhm.
was trying to force um, relationship, and it didn't work. But when put it out there, like, Lord, I want to do this record, uh, um, just put in my life the artists that are supposed to be on this. Um, you know, because of the type of music I do, who is hurting, and how to reach them. And I can't reach them through what I do, but you could reach them through what they do.
Mhm.
And so it's a collaboration of how do we, who needs help. I don't know who that is. I can guess all day long. Just we'll make some music. We'll put it out there. and people will discover it word of mouth, because I'm not on the radio. There's nothing like that. It's all word of mouth. So
Mhm.
I hope that kind of guides.
Yeah.
But again, it's just putting it out there and having your ears and eyes open, and
Mhm.
looking for that opportunity that comes naturally.
Your gut, like I tell people, if your gut says, for me, a lot of times I know I need to have a relationship for this person, but I really don't know why. But I just know that there needs to be one, and where that's going to play, or whether, so when some people to come us with some really big names of people they want to connect with, and they're like, I just know I need to be connected to this person, but I don't really know why yet. I'm like, that's okay. Let us help you get connected to that person you desire to connect with. And then people come back later like, okay, now I know why that all happened. And I don't know if I've ever told the story on my podcast and in these videos, but when my wife I had developed a relationship with a friend of Russell Brunson, and he didn't know who I am, didn't know who I was, built a relationship, developed this friendship. And then my wife had brain surgery and to
Hmm.
have a tumor removed. And at that point, I couldn't focus on my business. I wasn't generating cash flow. My wife was bedridden for like
Hmm.
over a month. She
Hmm.
ate her meals in the bedroom. And it was
Hmm.
just a horrible recovery. Brain surgery is just, I mean, when
Yeah.
they say it's not brain surgery, it's not open heart surgery, you would be like,
Yeah.
okay, I know how painful. I mean, I'm sure just the pain that was involved in major surgeries like
Yeah.
that. But anyway, long story short, a letter showed up in the mail, and I could share this story because I have permission from his wife, because Dave has passed away. But he sent me a letter and he said, Christopher, I saw your Facebook Live about go bathe in the River Jordan, because I did this
Mm.
Facebook Live about, sometimes it's as simple as, okay, just go bathe, just do this, this, and this, and
Yeah.
this great thing's going to happen. And we're like, no, it's
Yeah.
got to be all this grandiose thing. And so he said, because of your Facebook Live, it made me stop questioning my impression.
Mm.
Please don't tell anybody about the enclosed, but I just thought I needed to help your family, and I know this could help. So medical bills, co-pays, all those things, not being able to, money was tight. I mean, money was going into medical stuff, and I wasn't able to. Anyway, there was a $5,000 check
Mm.
in the envelope,
Mm.
and he just felt, I need to help this person. I
Yeah.
love and care for this person because they love and cared for me, and they've showed love and care for me and showed me that they care about me. And I just
Yeah.
felt this impression. Sent me a $5,000 check. We put
Wow.
that to good use at that
Yeah.
time. But over the right of my eye, it's the letter in the envelope, and the check is pinned by my wall. So every time I walks out of my office, if I ever have that self-doubt about, oh, business is hard and people aren't going to care about ROR, or people are going to care about what I have to say, and I look at that and I go, I got 5,000 reasons
Right.
why you need to teach people, because there's somebody out there that needs, someone out there has a relationship that they're going to need that's
Yeah.
going to drastically alter their life, and they got to go
Yeah.
find it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's amazing. And of course I always go back to Jesus on everything. Look,
Not a bad place
he's
to go back, by the way.
he's the greatest contact to have. The
Mhm.
best contact, and that relationship happens naturally. If we
Love
force
that.
that
I love how you just said that. Mm.
if we force that relationship, like, oh, if I want to have a relationship, I got to do this and this and this and this and this, and then I'm worthy of it. No, the reality is it's a natural relationship. You ask and you shall receive. You don't have to like you're waiting for support. Jesus is that $5,000. It just shows up.
Mhm.
You can't even control it.
Mhm.
It just shows up. But yeah, it's this amazing process of just being available. Things happen. People come into our lives. People are good, you know. Um, just shut off the 24-hour news, you know,
Yeah.
and you realize and know that there's good people, and they will come into your life, Just be open, be available, don't be a jerk. Um,
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So
put
I'm
that.
so
Be
glad.
open, be available, and don't be a jerk. So true.
Isn't that pretty much the gospel? Don't be a jerk.
It will. I remember SpongeBob sang a song, "Don't be a jerk." I can't remember. There was a song
Yeah.
that SpongeBob
Yeah.
sang one time. But all right, I gotta ask you this question. It's in my mind, and I'm like, I didn't want to ruin the moment when you're telling the elder Bednar story, but do you have his cell phone number? Can you text him and be
Do
like,
you want,
"Hey"?
do you want it?
So no, no,
Yeah.
you no,
Yeah. I could.
yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to. No, no. I was just like, you know, people.
It starts with 801.
Oh,
I'll
there we
tell you
go.
that
There we
much.
go. Perfect. Thanks. Yeah.
I'll tell you that much. It's not 1-800 Jesus.
So there is an app that you can text. I don't know if you know this. There's an app that you can text Jesus. You can text Stalin. I mean, it's this app, and you can text. It's an AI thing. And Jennifer, I'm like, who are you texting? She's like, I'm texting Jesus. I'm like, what? She's like,
Yeah, he lives in Tijuana.
it's like I'm texting like
Jesus.
these. Do you want But I'm
Jesus.
like, it's funny. I was like, but there's just this app where you can text people. Oh, that's
It
simple.
sounds like Rod to me. It sounds like taking the Lord's name in vain. Hi, this is Jesus. I'll give you an answer.
There's some number like there's a guy that got up in a seminar and he held up his phone and he's like, who would pay $1,000 for my phone? Tons of hands went up. And
Yeah.
then he's like, all right, told a little bit about what was on his phone. And so he began to tell all the things on his phone, like every course I've ever bought, you have access to my Google Drive and all this. And I've got, 20,000 contacts, and they knew all the celebrities and everything contacted. So anyway, seriously, he got up to several $1,000,000. There were hands that were in the air that would have wired $2,000,000 if they could have had. Yeah, I will buy your phone for $2,000,000 if it has everything you said that is on it. And there were serious hands in the room. And I was like, the number kept going up and up and up, but you can't, there's so much value in relationships. All right.
How much does it cost you to how much does it cost you to have that contact, that one contact with God, the guy that started it all?
Yeah.
What does that cost? I'd
Well,
rather have that.
absolutely. You know, we'll wrap up soon, but we were talking a little before. Something you brought up was really interesting. You talked about that test with the colors, and I thought,
Mhm.
what a great thing that applies to learning about
Yeah.
people. Like, talk about that. Because again, I was like, wait, let's wait for the interview. Let's talk about this. I know about neurolinguistic programming,
Mhm.
DISC program, and all that stuff, but I hadn't heard of this, what you talked about. And I thought, wow, this is really interesting. Tell me about that.
I think some of your audience probably knows what the Enneagram test is.
Some of them
EN.
probably do, but some don't. But yeah, tell us
Yeah,
about
EN. I think it's ENNEAG. Anyways, Enneagram. Um, we know the color test, we know the animal test, we know the personality test and all these things, but and it's been a known fact that when you know like you answer a bunch of questions and then it gives you, okay, you're a red color, you lean towards a yellow. But the Enneagram is this new incredible truth, which is that there are 9 types of people. There are 9 types of people when we're resourceful and less resourceful, meaning at our worst.
it.
And
Mhm.
so, there's 1 to 9. And so when you take this test, and you can do a free test on, I think it's trueit.com. Type in
Mhm.
take Enneagram test.
Okay.
And it's pretty basic. You can pay and get a more specific one, um, but basically you take this test and you answer all these questions, and it will tell you, like on a pie chart, where your personality is based on the questions you answer. And so for example, I'm a 4. I had a large pie that was 4, but the next large pie was 2. And so basically, when I'm at my best, I'm a 4. When I'm at my worst, I'm a 2. And a 4 is a creative. A 4 is sensitive. A 4 has vision. 4, um, a form is an entertainer. They like to do that. But then at my worst, I'm a 2, and that is the helper. So what that means
Mhm.
is that instead of dealing with my own problems, when I'm upset, angry, I will go and I'll do number 2. I'll start serving other people and putting all my focus on them. That's not a bad thing,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it's this weird thing. So when you take the test, for example, Chris, let's find out you're a 1. I
Mhm.
don't think you are, but the 1 is the perfectionist. The 1 is a Stephen Covey. 7 habits of highly effective people. You write down everything. You're organized. This is why his book doesn't appeal to everybody, because it's a 1 mindset.
Mhm.
It's a left brain mindset. And so, which is great why we have all these customized books. But a 1 is that. And they look at a 4, let's say, and then your wife is a 9, a peacemaker. The 9 is the peacemaker. Like, you could tell them they're an idiot, and they'd be like, "Well, what can I do to love you more so you don't talk so negatively?" 4 would just go, "Really? Do you think so?" A 2 would be like, "Let me help you with that. Let's help you, say it in a more effective way." But now there's all this evidence that if you'll communicate, um, to your spouse, "This is my test. This is who I am. And this is me at my worst." Now, that doesn't define you. It basically means that that's who you are, but you
Mhm.
wanna work on all the other personalities. You wanna learn these techniques. And so then you know what she is as well. There's some great YouTube channel where this woman acts out a marriage scene based on, okay, she's a 1, he's a 7 or
Mhm.
whatever, and how the interaction takes place. Now, if you know the emotional response to, um, an experience that they're going through, you'll know how to be able to be a more effective support in that relationship.
Mhm.
But you'll also know how to, poke and make them feel worse. So
Yeah.
the power is in your hands now. Of course, you and I know a scripture called, uh, "You either act or you're acted upon."
Mhm.
And so if you're acting, you're doing your thing, you're not allowing somebody else to come over and dictate what you're doing. No, they're not coming into your kingdom. They're not, you're, and so it's a great test. I think it's trueit.com. Take the
Yeah.
test,
Yeah. Yeah.
take it with your spouse. Now, it's only for people 25 and older because the brain is still developing. And if you tell
Mhm.
a kid you're a 1, it'll confuse them. So just do it if you're over 25 and talk about it.
I love it. I love it. We did the love language thing,
Yeah, it's the same,
going.
but
Yeah.
it's more, yeah, more in depth.
Yeah, I'm physical touch. All my wife has to do is touch the back of my head, and I'm
That's why
like,
you
"I'm
wanted
good."
10 kids.
She's gifts, which that's my wheelhouse. So
Mm,
it's like gifts, and words of affirmation, those kind of. But I love this because people need to. If people spend the time to get to know the people they want to be friends with, build
yeah,
relationships with, business, non-business, get
yeah,
to know what they're like, what makes them tick, and you know, gifting. Like if someone's on keto, the last thing in the world is you're going to send them something on keto, we tell people don't gift food because once they eat it, they're not going to remember you when they go to the bathroom. They're going to forget about it when they eat it and they're done. So like, don't give people food unless they really, really, really like something. But if they do like something, then send them a whole ton of it. Um,
yeah, yeah.
we sent 35 cases of LaCroix, bubbly LaCroix to somebody because they knew they loved LaCroix. We didn't send them a case. We sent them
I
like
love
35
that.
cases.
Love that. It's like
But
a
all
life.
right.
That's like 2 months supply for my wife.
This guy was getting ready to go on his yacht. and he was griping about having to go to the store. So we have a way,
Oh,
using services we have now, to make a delivery to his house, complete with card, handwritten note. We've learned how to
yeah,
hack some of
yeah.
these online stores and be able to use it as like a gifting. And now they actually are coming out with being able to gift. But anyway, um, okay, I got to ask. So I want to ask you two more questions as we wrap up. First, um, first one is, tell our audience something that you think would be very helpful for them in their relationship building journey. If there's anything you want to close with that you'd like to share, that's number
Mhm.
one. And then number two, anything that you're comfortable with sharing. What do you have coming up? What is there any interesting project that you want to talk about that maybe people don't know, you haven't talked about too much, so that people are like, oh wow, this is great? I mean, whatever. What's coming next for Paul? What do you got on the horizon? And what are some parting words you give someone about building relationships that you think will help them?
Yeah. First of all, thanks, Chris. I love this podcast of helping people with relationships, because this is the key thing in life. This is the thing that gives us our self-esteem, that gives us, our value. And too often we think, that we need that from people, but it's, I think for me, and I'm far from perfect, is we can't let other people cannot make us happy.
Mhm.
Other people cannot make us this sad. Other people can't make us angry. When we act for ourselves, we recognize our value. We know how valuable we are. Um, God, God. I mean, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ, get a relationship, because you will understand your value. You'll know your value, and by knowing your value, you'll have more confidence. You'll recognize fear is a liar, and you'll have that confidence to interact with people who you want to interact with. But at the same time, put it out there that I would like to have relationships in this circle. And then just do your research. Try to figure out, where are these people at? What do I know about these people? And this is your job. This is why I
Mhm.
love it. It connects so deeply with your job.
Mhm.
Find out something fascinating about them, compliment them on these things. Maybe know two or three things, even if you have to get out your 3 by 5 note card and read it in front of them. You
Mhm.
like, no, um, what's their favorite chocolate? I don't know. So, and then just don't be afraid. Ask a question, compliment. Can I ask you a question? Compliment them, and then let it alone. See what develops. See what happens. Hey, can I give you my cell number? Can you give me my cell number? Uh, I ran into a comedian who I love absolutely. I went up to him and I said, "Listen, when I was waiting for a heart transplant, everybody was laying hands on me and praying, and it was heavy." And I said, "But then I would turn you on, and you're crude, and you're just funny, and things I shouldn't listen to, but you kept me grounded. When I was
Mhm.
dying, you kept me grounded." And so right off the bat, he's like, "Hey, give me your cell number. Let's chat again." And it was weird, because I love this comedian. But it became so natural, and now it's like we're brothers type thing. Um, as far as what I'm working on, and thanks for asking that. I have a podcast. I get to interview incredible people about the gifts God has given them and how they're using their gifts. It's kind of like a master class in their different subjects. Like, we've had 3 actors from The Chosen, the director. We've got a lot of different musicians. I had a Catholic priest on. I wanted to know I wanted some clarifications on some theology, and so it's just random. And I love the podcast, and you're going to love it too, because you get a chance again, this goes back to relationships. You get a chance to talk to people and ask questions that you've wanted to know, and you're being filled with great information. Um, I'm always releasing music. I just put out a song called "A Grief Observed,"
Mm.
inspired by C.S. Lewis novel, "A Grief Observed," which is kind of it's biographical. It's about his wrestle with God.
Mm.
When grief happened, when his wife died, um, that relationship that he has with God, it went into a wrestle. How could you let this happen? Do you even exist?
Mhm.
Surrender, going through the stages of grief. And it's a powerful book. So, A Grief Observed was just that's kind of it. I don't know why, but that's the music I do. It's this music that helps people process heavy things.
Mhm.
And so I'm always releasing that. And but the thing I'm most excited about, Chris, is
Mhm.
I've been doing these leadership retreats for men that are burned out. Men are burned out.
Mhm.
They don't have friends. They have a lot of associates, people they go to church with, but a lot of the people you go to church with, you can't just trust them with information because
Mhm.
because it's like, oh, they're going to tell so and so and so and so. And sometimes too often in church theology becomes a transactional relationship. Accountability becomes a transactional relationship, and there's a lot of fear. Um, and so and so I do these retreats with just random people that God puts in my life, and we go to a cabin. Um, the only thing I do besides just hang out with everybody, they can do whatever, is at night I'll facilitate, let's have prayer. Let's go around the room and tell us what you got out of the day, something you're grateful for, and something you hope to happen tomorrow. And it's really helping men know their value, so they're able to go home and not be a jerk, be a
Mhm.
be a better husband like you, and a better parent like you, and do these things. So that's public doesn't know about that stuff. That's just things I love to do. I do 4 or 5 of those a year, and it's just, yeah, God has just worked miracles, and I think you just need to be available, and it'll come to you. You will know. Just say, hey, what can I do? You just put things out there. I'm a big believer, but if you put things out there without involving God, I think it's meaningless.
Mm. That's awesome.
That's just me. So
Are these retreats that you're doing something people can find out about it, or like,
no,
okay, all right, I
no,
get you.
no, because
I got you.
I wish there's liabilities.
Yep. I
There's
understand.
liabilities, but for me,
Sure.
it's kind of an intimate, personal. Yeah, because I've had a lot of women say, can I send my husband on this? And I said, well, let me get his information. And if I feel like that's something, it's difficult. It's difficult because everybody needs these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like scout camp uh, as adults,
Yeah.
you know, without a scoutmaster.
You know, I love these little we're gonna do a relationship event somewhere. I'd like
Mhm.
to do it in Michigan because there's so many cool things. Like if we went up to Mackinac Island to the Grand Hotel and did a relationship thing, brought in some cool keynote speakers and just did this mastermind. But what I tell people is I teach people pay a guy paid $70,000, another guy paid 150,000, another guy paid 250,000, a guy paid $90,000 to be in this mastermind. And they do
Yeah,
that so they can
yeah,
be in proximity with all these amazing people. So what I encourage my people
yeah.
is create your own
That's
network,
right.
your own mastermind. And it's a lot cheaper to connect with someone and bring them into your network and be able to, when I was telling a story, Mark Victor Hansen, he's like, Christopher, I have like 15, 20,000 people on my phone. I can text them all and they'll text me back within a couple
Yeah,
hours if they're
yeah,
available. And like George, he's naming names like George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and all these uh,
yeah.
incredible people. But that's awesome. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. Paul was so great to come on here. My first non-solo, as they say in my podcast, my first interview with someone, and I'm like, I was sitting there. You put it out there. I was thinking, who should I? And I'm like, you know what? I'd love to catch up with Paul, and it would be so cool just to talk about stuff. And I know he could contribute a ton about relationships and everything you've been through. Like, yeah. So put it out there, and he's like,
Uh,
I'd love to. And I'm like,
I'm just glad I get to talk to you again
there you
after
go. That's awesome.
Man,
So,
we have
so I gotta,
so many memories from back then,
it feels like yesterday.
doesn't it?
Um,
Isn't that
it,
weird?
it does. It feels like, I mean, I can envision streets I was walking down, doors I was knocking on, just
Dogs.
experience. Yeah, dogs, Rottweilers, because I was in the desert and people had
What was it about like the Mojave Desert? Everybody has Rottweilers, pit bulls. Uh,
mastiffs.
they want to be left alone. I think
They
they
were
all want to be left.
horses. They weren't
Yeah,
dogs.
they were massive.
I know why though. It was because of all the coyotes. Like they had like little
Oh, okay.
dogs were literally like Scooby snacks for like coyotes because they'd run in packs and
Hey, I'd take a Chihuahua over a German Shepherd because that little Chihuahua barks and barks and barks. The coyotes just stay way out of annoyance.
we had a dog and then we got a COVID dog during COVID. We were, everyone got their
It-
COVID dog because my kids
does
are
it co-
home.
so
You
does
know,
that come with a mask? Does the dog
no, it
come with
does not.
a COVID dog?
No, dog did not come with a mask.
I'm just kidding.
It was vaccinated though,
Okay.
so we wouldn't get rabies. But
Yeah. Well, that's
we
good.
COVID dog, and then we just got a third dog like a couple months ago. My wife went to a Facebook account and saw these pictures of these new puggles, and the next was history. We were picking up
Oh,
this dog, but
I
so we got
love
three
it.
dogs,
I
5
love it.
kids at home. So congratulations on all your success. Congratulations on life and your perspective and everything you're doing, these retreats that you're doing that's helping these men. And what a great, Paul, I can't envision, like, I know you probably think this, but I know there are so many people, me including, that turn on your music so that
Oh,
we can feel something, that we can connect with something, and that state that you need to get in to be able to receive whatever it is that you're trying to think of. And I know there's a lot of people that absorb your music, and my wife jotted some notes about you to talk about you in the beginning, but
mm,
it's inspirational. I mean, and yeah, you have impacted so many people's lives, and I know you continue to do, and you're not even close to being done. We're young pups, but thank you so
yeah, we
much for
are.
the impact that you have had in so many people. And when I told friends I get the interview, they're like, "Holy cow, his music is so inspiring," and it just
Mm,
and I'm like, so. But
well,
Paul puts his pants on just like everyone else. I just got to figure out what pant leg he puts on first, and then you can build that relationship with him.
although my wife does set out the pants she wants me to wear that day. So no, but thank you. Thank you so much. And to anyone who has um, been emotionally affected by my music, just know that the music came in a time in my life when God wanted to help me. And he knows you're hurting. He knows your family member, your other relationships you have who is hurting. And there's a natural way in which he heals people, but he heals people through us
Mhm.
and through the gifts God has delivered to each of us. So, my encouragement to people is to just be open to what God wants to do with you and through you. And life just significantly changes to where you feel less fear. You're not as afraid.
Love it. Thank you so much for being here. Stick around in the green room afterwards, after we close out. Let's chat with you just for a second. But just go to Google and type in this amazing human's name, and a couple things are going to pop up, and find him on wherever you get your music delivered to you. There's so many platforms nowadays. Create your Paul Cardall channels. I know I have one, and it's great to be able to.
Thank you.
They slip in other stuff, and I'm like, no, I don't want to listen to that person. Skip. Bring me more Paul.
You gotta have balance. Gotta have balance. Nothing like Metallica, then Paul, then Enya, then Rat. No, I'm just kidding.
Like, I'm listening to Paul Cardall, and all of a sudden they suggest Nine Inch Nails. I'm like, okay, cool, love it, good song, but no, not the place I was at. But all right, great. Thanks for being
I
here, Paul.
love it.
Appreciate it.
Hey,
Take care.
all the best, Chris.